Hello, 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 and welcome to Security Live. My name is Brian Mendenhall. I am the worldwide lead of the Security and Identity Partners at AWS, and we are here to talk about security with the world's top cybersecurity providers. I'm not alone. I'm here with my favorite co-host, Margo. I don't say that lightly. My favorite co-host, Margo.
Hey there, Brian. Yeah, thank you so much. And it's so cool to be back because I was off nearly all over the summer. My name is Margo Cronin, and I'm a security and compliance specialist SA with AWS. And yeah, I get to work with our partners on customer site, which is really cool, but it's so enjoyable then to get to chat to them on the show.
Awesome. And so thank you all for joining and welcome to the show, everybody, if you're listening. Before we jump in any further, if you are on the show, we want to hear where you are from. So put that in chat. We'd love to see where people are coming from. I like to think everybody is within a 10-mile radius of me, but of course that's not true. So we want to see where you're coming from. And number two, if you have any questions, put them in chat. We will bring those questions forward. This is actually a live show, a true live show, and we will answer your questions on the show. Make sure you put all of that in chat. All right. Without further ado, we are joined on this show by the wonderful guest coming from Fastly. We've got Liam and David from Fastly. Liam, David, thank you so much for being here with us. Yes, awesome. Please introduce yourselves.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Hi, I'm Liam Mayron. I manage some of our security products at Fastly, and looking forward to this.
Yeah, and hey everyone, my name is David King. I work on our security product marketing team, kind of Liam's other side of the coin on this side of the house.
That's so cool. And can you tell us a little bit about Fastly? Because I know actually many of our customers use Fastly as part of their application security and protection, but tell us a little bit more. Somebody who's coming across Fastly for the first time, why would they be thrilled when they open up what they see?
Yeah, Fastly is an edge cloud platform, and so we do a lot of things on this platform. We make content faster. We also make it more secure, and that's kind of the focus of David and me. So, application security, edge compute, observability, and of course, content acceleration are some of the things that we're known for.
And you're both in product management, is that right? As part of your...
Liam handles the product management. I handle the product marketing. So he works with the engineers to get it built, and then I work with the other teams to get it off the shelf and into the hands of all the wonderful folks who are on this show and beyond.
Awesome. You guys are the dynamic duo. We've got everything covered right here. This is like the perfect audience. This is great. So go ahead, Margo. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, if anybody on LinkedIn or Twitch or YouTube, where I think we're streaming today, want to ask questions on product management perhaps, or to Fastly about Fastly application security, they can join us in the show and put questions in the chat stream, which is that way, actually, on my monitor.
Exactly. Oh, but Margo, we almost forgot one of the most important elements of the show. Before we go any further, we have an acronym alert. So we have a rule within AWS. There it is. So if anybody says an acronym without defining what it is, that little thing shows up. We put a coin in the swear jar, the virtual proverbial swear jar. And so I promise, like we were saying just before the show, either Margo or I will probably be the first one to break the rule. I'm usually the first to call somebody out and then immediately break the rule. So just a heads up before we jump into this. And I say that specifically because the topic of the day, as I understand it, is DDoS, distributed denial of service. I'm safe. We can all say DDoS now. Awesome. And DDoS. Yeah, exactly. What's new in DDoS? What's happening with these types of attack and defense? What's going on here?
Yeah, a lot. It's been a busy year for DDoS, and yeah, thank you. I'm safe to say that that acronym. We brought some data, but generally we're seeing increasing trends in DDoS attacks that are shorter lived and maybe not going just for volume, but more to be a kind of persistent threat that flies under the radar. wallet attacks, trying to increase customers' cloud spend with via DDoS is something that we're also seeing a lot more of this year.
So
can you-
wallet attacks. Sorry, go ahead, Margo.
Yeah, I talked over you there, Brian. Sorry about that. I was about to say, because I think that was really interesting what you said there, Liam. Like you said, like a movement from volumetric attacks to more application level, right? Or, attacking a customer at that level. So can you expand on that threat?
Yeah, I think it's for us, the way we view DDoS, of course, there's those huge volumetric spikes and massive attacks that are intended to disable infrastructure. But what we see more and more of are the attacks that are not just going for volume, but trying to slow down access or really get through defenses to an origin to try to raise the victim's costs.
Oh, interesting. So the traditional approach, what I'm hearing you say, Liam, is like shotgun blast. I'm going to throw a ton of data at like an endpoint, a publicly accessible like IP or device or something, with the intent of like tipping it over, right? Crashing the system, either like taking down the application, the web application firewall, the WAF, or something behind it, in order to completely shut down service. That's like the traditional model. And now you're saying it's low and slow. So it's like it's a slow burn of data coming at the target for the purpose of either slowly degrading the service or increasing costs. Can you tell me how does that work on the increasing cost side?
Yeah, so either low and slow or smaller but very sharp bursts. Right, and when those get through, right, on the customer side, maybe they're not interrupted, but now their compute costs, their hosting costs are higher due to this undesired attack traffic.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Imagine like 10 to 15 years ago when everyone was still operating on-prem, like the likelihood that you could knock someone offline when they're on-prem, far higher, right? They weren't necessarily built to absorb these massive, massive inbound spikes. But with everyone moving into the cloud, like AWS, for example, like the likelihood you take AWS offline, let's call it next to zero, right? And so it's forced attackers to think about, how do I still hurt the victim or the target, right? And I think application DDoS is where Fastly has seen a ton of different attacks coming through. Like Liam said, both these wallet attacks and these like really big spiky ones.
That's super interesting. And I love, David, I will slide like the $5 bill across the table for just kind of roughly mentioning the security of the cloud, right? That traditional infrastructure being static, it gets to a point and it shuts down, right? But this kind of like serverless elastic, cloud compute has the ability to scale up and down when these attacks come in. So the benefit is that if the shotgun kind of approach of data like comes in, these DDoS attacks come in, your infrastructure is going to scale to absorb and resume services. And it sounds, Liam, what I'm hearing you saying, sounds like, okay, now we can't tip it over, but we can incur a cost as infrastructure scales up on the target side.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, with Fastly, we block attacks as far away from our customers' infrastructure as possible, all the way on like the edge of our edge.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that. Is it like you sit in front and like you're kind of this giant great wall of awesomeness that stops those things? I mean, how does that work?
I like that phrasing. I'll probably use it. A great wall of awesomeness. Yeah, we are infrastructure that sits in front of customers' infrastructure, including on AWS, with points of presence all over the world. And so any traffic destined for our customers will go through Fastly's infrastructure first, so we can take care of all the malicious stuff before it impacts further down. That
sounds super simple. Are there agents? Is it just route through Fastly? What does that look like in terms of lift for customers that are using your guys' offerings?
Yeah, there's a few different ways to use Fastly. Most of our customers use it via DNS. Right? So the update their DNS, and now all of those requests are flowing through Fastly. For some of our security products, there are agent options as well.
Are there common mistakes you're seeing your customers make that have kind of enabled these low and slow and change in attacks? Or is it with the advent of AI? I told you I'd be the first person to use an acronym.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I think there's two components there. One thing that is really essential is automated detection, automated mitigation. So many of these attacks are so short-lived that once you detect them, the attack's long done, but the damage is done. So that's a really important part of defense. AI is interesting. We're addressing AI threats in a few ways. So earlier this year, Fastly launched a product called AI Bot Management, specifically focused on how you handle scrapers, AI agents trying to get your content. It's different for each enterprise. Some of them really want to be included. Many of them do not. And that's why management is important there.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth considering. AI has really lowered the threshold for attackers, right? I was playing around in my favorite LLM the other day, and I said, hey, let's pretend for a second that I want to send 1 billion requests to my favorite site. This is my site, LLM. Don't worry, I'm not doing anything sketchy. And it said, okay, well, as long as you're not doing anything sketchy, here's a script. You can do it yourself, right? So the threshold is incredibly low at this point. Anyone can get in and create these really dynamic scripts that can avoid detection if you're using static detections. And so it really reinforces the need for an automatic solution that's really adapting to the world around us, right?
I'm going to ask you a question, if it's okay, that I get asked a lot by customers when we talk about this in AWS, and I'd be interested as well as because we shared these experiences with our customers, and something I get asked a lot, which I think is a great question, is do you share this intelligence then with the wider community? Because you obviously then see a lot, right? And you're out there at the perimeter, you're on the edge, and you probably have visibility before, let's say, pretty much lots of other players. Is there a mechanism where you share this?
It's one of the things that I really enjoy about being at Fastly is the visibility we have into the portion of the internet that we see. David, maybe you want to talk a bit about our DDoS reports that we share.
Yeah, definitely. So for the last year, every month I've been painstakingly crawling through all of the data on DDoS that we see at Fastly. And I've been releasing these reports that detail like who's getting attacked, what are the industries being attacked, what times are attacks coming in, where are they coming in, where are these attackers located, or where are these like sources of the attacks, right? When we were thinking about the security landscape, a lot of the vendors do an incredible job of doing like really incredible annual reports that are massive and they give so much information. There's also the quarterly ones, right? But there's, if we imagine they come out 4 a year or 5 a year, there's still 6, 7, 8 months out of the year where security teams are kind of left in the dark from these vendors, right? And so one of our goals at Fastly was, hey, how can we highlight in really brief reports what's going on in the industry so that way security professionals and platform engineers, et cetera, they can really fine tune their security posture with whatever Fastly is seeing. And so with that in mind, I actually do have a few slides of kind of the most interesting insights that we've grabbed over the last year. And I would love to share them with the group. Obviously, this isn't a sales pitch or anything like that. But me, I'm an incredibly visual learner. And so talking through these attacks and what we're seeing, for me, always lands best if I can see it and I can digest it. So the first one that we'll take.
I was going to say, sorry to talk over you, but this is landing really well in the chat, and there's some questions coming in, which Brian and I will love to as you go through it. But one of them is, are there any trends that are surprising you in the reports? And I think that's what you're about to show us here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so let's take a look at this first one, right? This is all of the application DDoS attack requests that Fastly has seen over the last year, right? We're going to come out with our September report here in a couple of days. In fact, it's a reminder to me that I need to start pulling the data and working on it. But what we'll see is that every line on this chart represents billions of requests that Fastly has identified as part of a DDoS attack, right? Obviously, there are some really small ones in January. In fact, in January, we saw billions of attack requests every day, but the scale of this graph has gotten so large that it doesn't show anymore, which is wild. But when we think about trends, take a look at June and August, right? Those three massive spikes, the three that we've seen the largest this year. If I was to call out one trend from this graph, it's that attackers have a ton of power at their disposal. What we're seeing in those three spikes are concerted attacks on a single Fastly customer. Can't go into the details of who it is, but what I can say is that all of them were like enterprise, like really, really massive global companies. And those spikes are bigger than what we saw on whole days throughout the year, right? And so as we think about protecting ourselves, like there is a ton of power at disposal for attackers. And, I dare say this is more than a lot of, on-prem services they can absorb themselves, right? They need, to be in the cloud, they need solutions. There's more to this than just trying to kind of protect yourself, right?
I blame kids. That to me just exactly says I'm going into summer break. I'm ready and I'm just, here we go. We're going to start the summer off. And then they're mad that they're going back to school. And one last attack, as summer wraps up. That's my analysis. Consulting in this one's free, guys. You can wrap this one up. Yep.
I'll pull you in for the next one.
You'll send your bill. There's another question from Ralph, if I can read this out. So Ralph is saying hi from Peru, and he's at a university, and he's just giving us some visibility into what they're experiencing. He's saying they're experiencing small-scale attacks, and they seem to be on weekends. And they see on weekends, we're seeing phishing attempts, during weekdays, micro attacks, and they're becoming increasingly precise and varied in pattern. And he says it seems to feel like it might be experiments to fine tune an AI. Is that the kind of trend you're seeing as well? Is that?
So what's really interesting, and actually matches what Brian said, we definitely see patterns in attacks across the year. We see a summer break, and we also see it during the week. We can see working hours there. And David, maybe you want to bring that one up.
Yeah, let's skip forward a couple. Back in May, we took a look at what were the hotspots as far as UTC time goes across the entire week, right? I think the first thing that you'll see is no matter what hour or what day you look at, attacks are bountiful, right? There's no point where someone is not receiving or not seeing an attack. But interestingly enough, there is a bit of a hotspot window, right? If you look between Thursday and Friday, between the hours of 1400 to 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. UTC, it gets really, really dark here, right? And so for defenders, right, let's think about that time globally, right? If you're in Los Angeles during this period, this is 7 a.m., maybe an early wake up. My wake up this morning for the show, not bad, right? Totally doable. If you're in New York, not bad at all, right? It's 10 a.m. when the attack starts. Middle of your day, you just had your first coffee. But as we shift further and further east, let's think about Tokyo. Tokyo saw these attacks at 11 p.m., right? They worked overnight until 5 a.m. to stop them. If these attacks landed in Sydney, even worse, right? It's 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. And so attacks are coming in at all times. And what we're actually thinking about looking at for one of our next reports is looking at the customers HQ or their location versus the time they were attacked, right? And investigating, hey, are attackers intentionally targeting you during off hours when you're going to get a page in the middle of the night and you're probably not on the top of your game? Probably where we're going to look at going next.
Right. So we've always talked about the Christmas morning attack, right? And there's history of massive, I'm not going to say any names, there are history of massive DDoS attacks that have happened on Christmas morning, shutting down humongous organizations, right? And so it seems like the history of this is, okay, well, I have to have somebody that's always on call, always by their phone, always on the laptop. And then we got into this follow the sun model. Right now I have to have a security operations center response team in North America, in Europe, in Asia, so that somebody, it's always the middle of their day. But even that is transforming, right? Now we're seeing, are you seeing more of a need for automated response and AI response, artificial intelligence response to be able to help subsidize whenever these attacks happen? I mean, what are you seeing on how we address this?
Yeah, what we're still seeing is the kind of well-established guidance of defense in depth and a variety of defenses. It applies now more than ever. So we've been talking about DDoS mitigation, but there's different types of attacks, right? You need a WAF and bot management and an automated solution, particularly for short-lived attacks or those slow attacks. And in some cases, you may need a human on call for those really large events that can require extended mitigation. So it's really requires a variety of approaches to have a comprehensive defense.
Okay, so like there is no one size fits all. There is no. I'm still looking for the magic. What is it? The silver bullet. That's just going to fix all of our problems. If we've got we've got people that are watching this show that are like, either I am that tier 1 analyst, I am the engineer, I am the architect that has to like figure out what does this look like. How do we know what is the right tool for the job when it comes to specifically to our perimeter protections?
Mm-hmm. Part of that answer is really specific to your enterprise's needs, right? That can vary depending on the nature of your business, the vertical you're in, how you interact with your customers. So I can't give a blanket response. Threats that are really broad, volumetric, or DDoS mitigation, threats that are tailored to your business, bot management makes a lot of sense there. WAF, for threats versus specific technology stacks or vulnerabilities, it will come down to what goals the enterprise is trying to achieve. Are you trying to block content scrapers, or are you trying to welcome in price bots? There's different approaches there.
What are the most common mistakes you see customers make? I mean, anecdotally, recently, I had a situation with a customer where there was a little bit of an escalation, a bit of panic, as like they were experiencing what they believed to be a volumetric attack. Actually, what it was kind of a problem with requirements mixed with architecture, because they had built a gamification app, like a spin the wheel kind of thing. And it just proved to be incredibly popular. And what they had used in background, and kind of Brian's earlier point about leveraging things like serverless, they had actually implemented their architecture in such a manner that it wasn't scaling. So it actually turned out to be actually quite a nice session, because we got to talk about serverless and all the benefits of cloud, where they didn't have to worry about this. And it was definitely understanding the requirements in that scenario was the issue, and actually understanding how popular, not so much the product, but the gamification that they'd put in front of it would be. What for you are the most common problems you see out there?
I really like that gamification example. Because a rush of visitors to your web properties is often great. Like that's your it's a wonderful moment, and you don't want to disrupt that. And that's actually how Fastly has built our DDoS mitigation solution, to actually make sure that we don't block those types of spikes. It kind of reminded me of another example with coupon codes. That we had with one of our customers, that they were very popular.
Sure.
And we see it in a number of places. There's in terms of mistakes, one of them is a wrong tool or misattributing attacks. So I think it also ties into the gamification example, but something may look like a volumetric spike, but actually be could be something like a search engine scraper, for example, an LLM agent that may not necessarily merit being handled the same way as a volumetric spike. Another is, being aware of, in terms of DDoS and volumetric attacks, those first few seconds where a lot of damage can occur, and not having a solution in place to really handle that. And I think the third is the balance between an adaptive solution, one that kind of looks at the traffic coming in, versus static rules, static blocks, and we actually have another chart to show you about this. David, if you want to bring it up, the one with IP addresses and their frequency.
And while
Yeah.
David is doing that, I'll call you out, Liam, because you used LLM, so you're buying beers after the show.
I did. Large language model.
I'm in.
Large language.
There you go. I still want my beer.
Yeah, and I think this one's really interesting, right? So every day, our solution, Fastly DDoS Protection, is automatically creating rules to stop a variety of DDoS attacks on customers, right? And so one of the things we looked at back in August was, hey, how many unique IPs are observed in rules? What we found is that in August, the vast majority of IPs that were involved in blocks, they only show up once, right? And so as we think about mistakes, or opportunities is probably a better way to phrase it for all the folks who are out there listening, I think oftentimes we get in a place where we're creating rules where we're using IP as part of it, right? And if you look at this chart, you're really creating a game where you're playing whack-a-mole, right? You're jumping from one IP, stopping it, bouncing the next, stopping, banging, 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 banging. It's all you do all day, right? The data tells us that DDoS attacks are also often used as a distraction, right? And so while you were spending time creating rules to stop these individual IPs, attackers were sneaking in and doing even more nefarious and more targeted attacks on you that you were too busy to stop, right? And so as we think about kind of the need for adaptive and automatic protection, it really starts here, right? Because ideally, we're using those IPs as part of the rules. But if individual humans were doing that, that's a ton of time, right? In perimeter security, application security, it's one piece of a much, much, much larger puzzle that I think everyone can agree continues to get larger as we add chatbots to our sites and all this other extra different attack surfaces, right? And so this was a unique example of just like how many IPs we're observing in roles. And on the flip side of it, on the 5% side, we found that the worst offending IP was one that I believe attacked over 40 different customers within the month, over like 150 something attacks. Like instead of just kind of going low and slow using this IP and maybe coming back later in subsequent months, they went for the scorched earth approach, right? Where they probably knew, hey, this IP is going to get blocked everywhere and anywhere. In fact, I saw it on like a dozen different third-party abuse sites. But that doesn't mean for the month that they couldn't cause massive damage and then find a new IP to restart with next month, right?
Absolutely. I remember I had a customer one time that wanted to take every known bad geolocation and bad IP and block it across all of their firewalls and WAFs and everything else. And it was like, you're trying to block the internet at this point. Just block everything and only accept, traffic from what you want. But you're saying, let's look at the behavior. Let's look at the actual activities rather than like threat intelligence platforms or tips are great for other things. But maybe here it's like whack-a-mole and the proactive approach is just too big. For those that are watching the show, these slides are available. We're going to put up a QR code in just a second. There it is. Boom. Like I spoke it into being. You have access to this. Please take a look. Visit. Yeah, exactly. Where do I point? What am I doing? Before we go, David and Liam, question for you guys. If you were at a Renaissance fair, what would your costume be? What would your persona be? Would you be the knight in shining armor? Would you be the guy behind the bar that's handing out steins of beer? I think that's where I would be. What would it be if you were at a Renaissance fair?
I'm hyping up the crowd. When they have the jousting events, I'm up there getting everyone excited. I'm definitely not on the horse. I'm gonna fall off. I might die, but I'm there for the hype.
Yeah, for me, being in security, I have to go with the option with the armor, right? The knight. I'd probably go with that.
I love it. Hey,
Sure.
sorry, Margo, cut you off.
I would be the lost person, the K-pop demon hunter, going, where am I?
I love that.
Wrong fair.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for being on the show. Absolutely wonderful discussion around DDoS, what customers can do to protect themselves, where things are going, and what types of attacks we're seeing. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you guys down the road. Thank you guys again.
Yeah,
Thank
Brian
you.
Morgan, thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Security Live. Security Live is a show, our streaming show focused on AWS and AWS partners, where we come together and talk about security challenges that we see with our customers and hopefully solve some of them. I am joined today by my co-host, Brian. Introduce yourself, please, Brian.
Hey everybody, my name is Brian Mendenhall. I am the worldwide leader of the Security and Identity Partner Special at AWS, the longest title at all of AWS. It is an absolute pleasure to be here, Margo.
Hi, and my name is Margo, yes, and I'm a Security and Compliance Specialist SA in EMEA. And we stream every other Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time and 4 p.m. GMT time. And you can join in the show as well. So it's not just me and Brian. Please join in the show and ask our guests, hang on, over that side, I think, for me. Questions in our chat channel. And we are now quickly coming into autumn, or fall, as you call it in the States. And we have our summit season has closed up in Europe. We had actually the Zurich summit only this month and the partner summit, which was so cool. And very quickly now we'll be coming up fast to Reinforce, right, Brian? No, sorry. Gosh. No, blip in the matrix, Reinvent, which will be coming up very quick.
We're going to reinvent the Reinforce and call it Reinvent in December. Yes.
That's it. And we get to meet our partners there live on site. So that would be very exciting. But today, joining us, we have Rubrik. And Rubrik have a tagline, which I love, which is they're on a mission to secure the world's data. And we're going to be joined by Adam Rusho from Rubrik. Hopefully. Here we go. Hey, Adam. Good morning. I think it's morning where you are. It's evening where I am. It's morning where Brian is.
It's still morning. I'm right in the middle, so I'm on the East Coast. It's fast approaching noon for me here. Hey, Margo. Hey, Brian. Happy to be here.
Hey, Adam. First of all, let's talk about this absolute beautiful axe you've got in the background. We're one and the same here. Let's start a band. Let's start a band right now. Forget the show, man. Let's just start jamming out. Let's see what happens.
I love the idea, too. And there's actually an extra one right there as well, too, if we need it. So
perfect.
Have an extra one.
We're ready.
Security music. Adam, tell us a little bit about Rubrik and how it supports our customers.
Yeah, so Rubrik really is kind of at the intersection, I would say, between a backup company and a cyber resilience and cyber recovery company. And really where we focus a lot is this kind of secure by design platform where we're really working on that cyber resilience and helping customers achieve that. It's a big, broad term. It's an industry term. But really, if you think about it, the world of data centers was really more about making sure your data centers were running and protecting against power outages, fiber cable outages, things like that. But now we're in this world where cyber attacks are pretty regular for everybody. So getting that environment really in these critical production applications, cyber resilience, so if there is some sort of incident, customers are able to quickly recover.
Absolutely. And Adam, before we go much further, for all the people that are watching the show live, again, this is a real legitimate live show. Put your questions in chat. My question would be, can you play Freebird on one of those guitars right now? But that's me. For everybody else, you can ask your own questions to Adam, to make sure that we're pulling this forward. So sorry for the hasty.
Right, actually, I have one for chat as well too. Can anybody guess what band is on the T-shirt I have under my hoodie?
Ooh,
figure that out.
I'm going classic nerd music. All right, like those of us in the know that Rush is the ultimate nerd music. I'm going Rush.
I'm cooler than that. Sorry, Brian.
Dang it.
Let me think. I think I will go Pearl Jam.
We have AC/DC in the comments.
You
know what? Let's hold on this, Adam. Let's let it simmer a little bit. Let's get some of the comments. If you get it right in the comments, we will pull your name forward. I'll give you a virtual high five. I'll give you a shout out on LinkedIn for getting this right. So let's hold, and we'll show you the answer at the end of the show. I love this, Adam. I'm so excited about this. The Clash.
That is very good guess. That is one of my all-time favorite bands. Not the T-shirt I have on today, but was almost the T-shirt I wear today.
Awesome.
Okay. So it's hard. So what I was going to say
now, though, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Now we are all way more interested in your shirt, and we no longer want to talk about resilient architectures and backup. Tell me, a problem when I'm working with customers and they're facing this, they're moving into this in their architectures, they've designed their architectures, they're starting to talk about resilience, they're starting to consider backup. And I think one of the things that I observe when it comes to things like shared responsibility models is they nearly don't know at what point it's their responsibility and what their blast radius is, therefore, of what it is they need to back up and when. Is this something you help customers with? Do you observe this? What advice would you have?
Yeah, this is probably one of the biggest challenges we see faced by many cloud customers. So no surprise, right? As one of the biggest benefits that cloud provides many organizations is you can build really, really quickly. You don't have to wait for servers to get shipped to you before you can get them installed and start making cool applications on top of them. You can just go. So with that speed of development, one of the big challenges that happens with that is instead of a kind of centralized IT team that's making sure you're spinning up the right EC2 instances for compute or the right storage, each individual application team, there's a big sprawl in these organizations. So there's all these different application teams. So you have hundreds of application teams, and security is everybody's responsibility, which is part of it. That's definitely a key thing there. But more importantly, they don't know where their responsibility starts and ends, I think.
Yeah.
So this really almost comes into where there's like a meta shared responsibility model within each one of these organizations. So they might think that the SecOps team is doing all of the heavy lifting for them, and they just have to watch their like anti-phishing videos and make sure they don't, click on the UPS package link in an email. But really, when they're building these applications, it comes down to each individual level of the app stack and who owns what. And oftentimes it really shifts over to that application team. So usually as these organizations evolve and data continues to sprawl, the big unknown is, well, if we do get hit and there's just a 0-day, something that impacts us, number one, who's impacted by it? Like which one of these app teams, which applications are impacted by it? And who's in charge of the recovery at that point, right? Because sure, I'm running on EKS or something along those lines, right? Kubernetes container services. I can spin those up really quickly. I can get the networking back up and running really quickly. But then who's responsible for restoring the data I need from my application? And that usually is that critical point where the light bulb moment comes off with a lot of organizations where they realize, oh, maybe we don't have a solution for this. And that's
so yeah, so it's the governance, it's the management of governance of like, hey, what does good look like and who's responsible for it? Like you almost need, I think I've written like 15 RACI charts in the last 2 days, but it's like, what does that RACI chart look like across your dev stack, right? Of like the application, the infrastructure, the workload, the data underneath. And then Adam, I think you're touching on something that's super interesting as well as what data do I have where and what security controls are around it, right? Like how is this architected and what does it actually look like in runtime essentially, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So there's a million tools out there that can help with the prevention of a lot of cyber attacks. But that only goes so far. And what I often see happen in organizations is when they do get hit with an incident or they're planning for, getting hit with an incident, it ends up being great. We have these thousands of tools we invested money in, and we know where in each app stack there is an issue if we find one. But then it comes down to, again, of kind of lobbing a grenade over the fence of, all right, we found it. You go figure out how to restore the data now. And that still ends up being a massive challenge. And that's really where, if you look at a lot of the kind of ransomware attacks and cyber breaches we've seen over the past several years too, the thing that elongates the downtime isn't that, they're negotiating with, paying Bitcoin, or they don't know where the attacker is. It's more of the, cool, we got the attacker out, we're good on that. Now we have to recover. And that's taking us weeks to months to do that, which is a massive downtime.
Something something interesting I've observed as well over the last 2 years, maybe 2 to 5 years, but definitely over the last 2 years, is not only just a change in the attackers, but also the standards and attestations and laws that companies have to align to now are evolving, and they're becoming a lot more literate in resiliency and cyber terms. So actually putting like benchmarks and KPIs in place for organizations, depending if they're FSI or healthcare or regulated in some manner, saying this is when you need to be restored and back up, or this is how you need to be resilient. So customers, I find that customers can be quite overwhelmed by the different attackers and all the new laws that are coming in.
Couldn't agree more with that. It's actively changing, even to the point too where a lot of most enterprise organizations have cyber insurance as well too, and the cyber insurance carriers as well too are also putting more requirements on what they're doing. Right, no different than if you think of health insurance too. Premiums go up, or even car insurance too. Right, premiums go up. My one son's going to be driving here soon, so he's going to have higher premiums versus me, who's been driving for a while, comparatively there too. So there's a lot more check boxes, and customers are not only being held to a higher standard for their overall cyber recovery, but even the external auditors, the broad compliance that's in place as well too, is really catching up to the times. It's a lot more. We're seeing way less of the, do you have backups? And it's a checkbox. You say yes, and you show them one report, and they move on to the next of the 30 controls that they're reviewing for a given organization. And they're really asking okay, but show it to me. How long is this going to take? Mm-hmm. What does this mean for a backup? How are you backing up this thing over here? How can you recover? And it really gets a lot more granular. And that, I think, really, Margo, to your point, is what's blindsiding a lot of organizations is when the auditor came in last year, we got this done in 2 weeks. This year, somebody else, there's 20 extra pages in the document. What do we do? We weren't ready for that. And that really leaves a lot of teams scrambling and having to implement things more reactively than proactively even too.
Absolutely. And so we're talking about like security provability, right? In the past, just rewind like a year, 2 years ago, and it was just fill out the spreadsheet, like check the box. Yep, I've got that. I've got that. I've got that. Here's your spreadsheet. Have a nice day. Like copy paste, what is it, like Command D at the bottom and like fill in the whole thing. And now it's like, okay, then it's send me a screenshot of something, and then it's like, actually prove to me that you have these controls in place. I think of it, I'm getting a little bit older in my years, and like health insurance now for me as an old dude is not just, are you healthy? It's also like, now go get a physical. Like I want a doctor that is going to prove that you are as fit and healthy as you say that you are. And I think we're seeing the same thing in cybersecurity, right? Data and otherwise, that you have to show your math.
Yeah. And I think it even shows more critically too, right? A lot of the unfortunate incidents we've seen over the last years too, even from state actors, whatever it might be, they've caused supply chain issues. People can't go pick up their groceries. People can't fly. These are like major impacts, especially in like banking industry as well too, where it's minimum, viable product essentially is one of the new terms we start hearing a lot of. Minimum viable business. How long does it take you if you have a downtime? You have to have the bare minimum for your business up and running in say 24 hours, which is also something that a lot of people, once they move into cloud, aren't necessarily prepared for.
Right. So let's talk about that minimum viable business. What does that mean? And what actually is minimum viable business? Is it operations? Is it being able to print checks? Like, what is that?
Yeah. And it's very tough, right? So it's kind of self-defined in some ways by many of these organizations. And then there are some compliance considerations on top. But I mean, the net of it is the bare bones for the business to operate needs to be back up and running in another environment, likely within that very shortened time window. So maybe the internal like HR tools and things like that, those are out of scope for it. But those critical services that their end customers need and expect need to happen within that 24-hour time window.
I'm going to throw two more out there, Adam, and I want to pick your brain on this. I don't even know if we talked about acronym alert, so I'm just going to like throw these out there: RPO and RTO, right? Recovery point
Yes.
objective, recovery time objective. What are these things, and like how do we prepare for these?
Yeah, so RPO and RTO, so recovery point objective, recovery time objective. Those have been around for a long time. I'll still explain them. I think there's a new one that I like to talk about a lot called cyber RTO, which is a little bit different there. So RPO, recovery point objective, that is how much data the business is willing to lose if there is an outage. So for instance, if a business has a 24-hour RPO, that would mean that they're okay to lose up to 24 hours worth of data. So if just their environment was wiped out right now, they can roll back 24 hours and they just lose 24 hours worth of transactions. RTO is recovery time objective, how long it takes for the business to get back up and running. So that was kind of where we were going with, I think, the minimum viable business. As mentioned, in 24 hours, so that's a 24-hour RTO in many ways. Cyber RTO, though, is the one we talk about a lot, which is really more of a recovery from a cyber incident. And that's a key distinction because RPO and RTO, like I said, it's been around forever. And it really was born in the data center. So the compliance around there of 24 hours, 4 hours, 2 weeks, whatever it might be, was really more around the mindset of, there was a server rack in our data center that went down, or, we lost power to the building, or there's a hurricane coming over the weekend. Those types of scenarios where it's a small to large incident, but you build a secondary data center, you have failover mechanisms for it and things like that. And, you'll do general disaster recovery tests, and see how long it takes you to fail over. Cyber, though, and that cyber RTO is really where I think a lot of organizations need to start not testing for disaster recovery, because if you're built on AWS, for instance, a lot of that resiliency is built into the product day one, right? If I spin up the smallest EC2 instance in the world, it's going to cost me $1 a year to run. It's way more resilient than anything I would put in a $20+ million data center that I built myself. For comparison, and that's just out of the box. But the cyber resiliency and being able to recover a clean point in time, that's the biggest challenge too, right? Because if you think about it, even how backups are traditionally done in cloud environments is snapshots. So I take a snapshot, and that's really more of an operational recovery use case to minimize that RPO. So if I take a snapshot every hour, I have an RPO of 1 hour. I'm only going to lose up to 1 hour of data. Now, think about this more from a cyber attack standpoint. If I restore from an hour ago, well, that hour ago snapshot's still dirty, still malware in there. So what? I'm going to go reinfect my entire environment again. That's not a good spot. Really what you end up having to do is there's this concept of like clean rooms where you spin up a new AWS account that's completely isolated from everything else. And then you're recovering into that, running a bunch of forensics tooling on top of it. And then, that snapshot's still dirty. Let me rinse and repeat that process again, over and over and over again. Now multiply that by petabytes of data across thousands of servers. And that's why these businesses are down for weeks to months in that recovery scenario. So that's the thing I try to tell a lot with customers and all of Rubrik too, is really defining what a cyber RTO is. Because having just a traditional RTO that was really a function of the data center in AWS, that's not hard to do. But having that additional level of what about protecting against a cyber attack and recovering from that, that is really the thing that I see a lot of customers and organizations trying to achieve now, but something they tend to not have in place.
Super interesting.
I've seen customers try to do this on AWS.
Sorry, go ahead, Margo.
Oh, sorry, Brian. I think I might. Well, I was going to ask, do customers practice this? Is this something customers can practice?
Yeah. So
creating their forensic environment, bringing back up.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I think Rubrik tends to help with as well too. Because one of the big things, and actually if you pull up my screen, I can actually show it live here as well. So twofold things that I have on here. Kind of goes broadly here. I think going back to kind of that earlier point too, of kind of that meta shared responsibility model, Part of the challenge, there's a lot of data that is in any typical cloud environment, and having full cyber resilient backups for those, or even operational snapshots, those you don't need those across everything. There's a cost associated with that. So backing up every point of data, every bit of data for 7 years, that's going to be cost prohibitive, and it's not necessary either. But that also leads to additional challenges of, am I overprotected or am I underprotected? So one of the things that Rubrik customers get right out of the gate, which I think is really, really cool, is we get a view right into the overall AWS environment. So across all of the EBS volumes, has some S3 buckets in here, RDS databases, and then automatically we can tell customers, and they can really see how are they performing any sort of backups on this data today. Are they using native AWS snapshots? Are they using Rubrik? But more importantly, we can actually look into the data to some degree and see if there's any sensitive data. So this really helps focus those teams that might not know that they should have an additional level of protection on their data by saying, not only is, say, this S3 bucket here in the yellow, which might be a little bit hard to see, we have no backups on this at all today. And we also see some sensitive data as well. So you can kind of double click on that, see what buckets are impacted there. And that's a really key area for the larger organization to help them focus their cyber resilience efforts on where the critical data is as a first pass. So making sure that they aren't underprotected on the critical workloads, which would be really bad to have that happen during a cyber incident, and start the focus there. But then once all of the backups are going, I think this is really where kind of some of the magic happens. If I go to our main dashboard here, you can actually see pretty live all of the different threats that may be coming into the environment. So we have external threat feeds that all of our customers get, known IOC. So IOC is an indicator of compromise, to get that acronym out of the way there.
Nice.
And we're monitoring on every backup we take 1.5 million known IOCs. You can plug in additional ones as well. This one's the main one we get is from Mandiant. And then all the backups are taken. We're doing this preemptive recovery engine under the covers. So what that means is after we take that backup and we're putting it in air-gapped environment, which means segmented away from production data. So bad guys who may have a identity compromise inside of a production account can't get to the backup data at all. We want to make sure that's a best practice that's sectioned off. But all of those backups are automatically, we have pre-calculated hashes that we're checking on. We're looking for anomalies. So if there is an encryption event, we can identify those and any of those threats. So this really helps not only in just having the backups work for the business and unlocking more value outside of backup data itself, but then helping customers focus more on their cyber recovery efforts as well. So one of the things that our product helps here too is that if we find any anomalies that may be a ransomware indication or any indicators of compromises, IOCs, we'll quarantine out those backup points in time. And this allows customers to very, very quickly recover clean. So they don't necessarily have to go through that route of doing a restore, doing a bunch of forensics on it, and then giving it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We can actually do a hash across every single backup we've ever taken for those known indicators of compromise, and completely know which points in time have bad data in it that shouldn't be recovered back in the environment, and which ones are the good points in time. So this dramatically reduces that cyber RTO I've been talking about, where customers can find that clean point of recovery very, very, very quickly. And all of this is just running in the background for them as well. So if one of these anomaly pops, they'll get an alert on it, they get it sent to Slack, and they can immediately start to react and recover as well.
Absolutely. So, I was going to ask, like, how do you know what your golden image is? And you're basically saying like, hey, we've got that covered. Like we have a way of scanning and like, we know what's out there. We know what's coming in, the threats, the landscape, like we've got this covered. Don't worry about it. Yep. That's amazing. That's incredible. And data is becoming so important, right? It's becoming more and more important, especially like AI applications and workloads. all of like, I don't know how many times, please don't Google this, but my social security number's been leaked, just over and over and over again. Someone please get this tool into the hands of the IRS, please. But Adam, a couple questions before we go forward. What's on your shirt? Like I'm like a dog chasing a squirrel here. We got to know. We've got a couple answers in chat. I'm very excited about this.
All right. Do we get a drum roll? Nothing? All right. So it's Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses.
Love it. Love it. So are you a Slash fan?
Of course.
Of course. Naturally. All right. Sorry, that was a complete tangent. Go ahead, Margo.
Well, I was going to say there is some love coming in the chat for you. Some very long comments about people appreciating what it is you posted there about refining tactics, and even they seem small. These micro attacks can be the dress rehearsal for something bigger. I think that's actually quite an interesting observation from someone in the chat. So lots of love coming in there, and lots of band guesses as well. No Guns N' Roses though.
No Guns N' Roses. We do have a QR code. Adam, do you know what this QR code goes to? I think it goes to my GoFundMe account, but that may not be true.
The IRS.
So one of the things we have too is kind of a test drive too of the product. So it's kind of a click-through demo. I believe that's what the QR code does, as far as some additional details as well on the overall Rubrik security platform too, and how that works with AWS.
Awesome. So, Adam, key takeaways here today is that number one, like, data is more important than it ever has been, and we expect that it will continue to be more important. It is the kind of the golden eggs of the organization of like, this is our intellectual property, this is our customer data, this is what is most important to us as an organization. We have to protect that more than ever. The tools and the concepts have shifted from what was traditionally on premise and what was important in that environment, where you could like walk in and point and go, that's my data right there. Right. And maybe some organizations and people are listening to that. They like open the door to the closet and they go, that's our company. That's our business right there. Those concepts are different than the concepts in AWS. I forgot to mention, I got to slide that $5 bill to you as well for mentioning that, like, AWS does a lot of that other stuff out of the box, the $1 workloads. There is an AWS free tier. I'm a personal fan of that. I spin things up all the time that don't make sense, but a lot of the resiliency of that is built in. Cyber resilience is a completely different topic, right? What's important in those environments and concepts is different. Last question, Adam, before I let you go. And I was thinking of this as we were talking. Favorite guitar player of all time or current? You can go one way or the other, whichever one's easier. But I'd love to hear this.
Joe Strummer, but I mean, not because of his guitar talent, I would say. But Joe Strummer is probably up there.
Joe Strummer. I love it. I was going to say hot take Buckethead. Played for Guns N' Roses.
No. Next time I'll wear the bucket.
All right. I think that is it for our show today. Adam, thank you so much for being with us. And we look forward to seeing everybody back here on the next show. So thank you all so much for joining us. Have a great week.